It was still dark outside when the banging started. Not a knock, a fist hitting my front door so hard I felt it in my chest before I was fully awake. I sat up in bed, heart slamming, staring at the ceiling of my condo for the 2 seconds it took my brain to catch up with my body. Then I heard my mother's voice cutting through the door like she owned every wall between us. "Elena, open this door right now. We need to talk about this apartment." I didn't move. I just sat there in the dark, listening to the way she said this apartment, not your apartment, not your home, just this apartment, like it was an object she'd misplaced and come to collect. My brother's voice followed, lower, more controlled, the way he always sounded when he was trying to seem reasonable. "Come on, Elena. We drove 2 hours. Don't be dramatic." I looked at my phone. 4:47 in the morning. I got out of bed anyway. Not because I was afraid, and not because I thought for 1 second I owed them an explanation at that hour. I got up because I already knew what this was. I'd felt it coming for weeks, the way you feel a storm in the pressure of the air before the sky ever changes color. I walked to the front door in socks and pulled it open. My mother stood in the hallway, holding her purse against her chest like a shield. My brother stood behind her, arms crossed, wearing that expression he'd perfected over 30 years, the one that said he was the victim of whatever was about to happen. And beside him, half a step back, was his wife, who at least had the decency to look slightly embarrassed about being there. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "What are we doing here?" My mother stepped forward like she expected me to move. "I didn't. We're here because your brother needs this place, and you've been ignoring every single one of my calls for 2 weeks." I looked at my brother. "You drove here at 5 in the morning. I have a family," he said, like that explained everything. Like that was a sentence with an ending. "So do I," I said. "Me." My mother's jaw tightened. "Don't be selfish. Marcus and Diane are expecting their second baby, and their lease is up in 6 weeks. You're a single woman. You don't need 3 bedrooms. I took one slow breath. "I have 2 bedrooms. And I bought this condo with 4 years of night shifts, holiday pay, and every vacation I didn't take. So with all the love in the world, no." My brother stepped forward then, and something about the way he moved made me grip the door frame a little tighter. Not because I was scared of him. Because I recognized it. That posture he used when he'd already decided the outcome and was just waiting for me to catch up. "Mom put her name on the original paperwork," he said. "She helped you get this place. She co-signed a single utility account," I said. "When I asked her to. Which I paid in full. Every month." "That's not what she told the bank," he said. The hallway felt like it got smaller. I looked at my mother. She didn't deny it. She just lifted her chin slightly and said, "I only explained the situation. That this is a family investment." I closed the door. Not slammed closed. Quietly. Deliberately. The way you set down something fragile. I turned the deadbolt and stood there for a moment with my back against the door while they knocked and called my name. And I breathed the way they teach you in nursing school, when a patient's coding and you need your hands to be steady. Then I walked to my kitchen, put on coffee, and sat down at my table to figure out exactly what my mother had told the bank. I'd moved into the condo 14 months earlier, on a Thursday in October, with a borrowed truck and a coworker named Priya, who spent 4 hours helping me carry boxes and exactly 0 minutes asking for anything in return. The place was mine 100%, my name on the deed, my credit, my down payment from a savings account I'd been building since I was 23 and sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 other nursing students in Charlotte. It wasn't glamorous. It was 800 square feet on the 4th floor of a building 20 minutes from the hospital, but the floors were original hardwood and the kitchen window faced east, and I used to eat breakfast watching the sky go from black to purple to the pale thin blue of early morning, and it was the most peaceful thing I had ever owned. My mother had been quietly unhappy about it since the day I signed. She'd wanted me to buy something closer to her house in Greensboro. She'd suggested twice that I consider renting instead, just until things settle. She'd asked, casually, at Thanksgiving, whether I'd thought about letting Marcus and Diane stay for a few months while they looked for something bigger. I'd smiled and said I hadn't, and we'd moved on to dessert. And I'd told myself that was the end of it. It wasn't. My brother had always been the favorite. That's not bitterness, that's just physics, the natural order of things in our family. Marcus was the first grandchild, the only son. the one whose name came up in prayer at church alongside blessings and abundance. I was 2 years younger and female, which in our household translated to responsible, helpful, and second. I put myself through nursing school on scholarships and loans. Marcus got 2 semesters of community college paid by our parents before he dropped out to pursue something entrepreneurial, which meant a series of businesses that never lasted long enough to have a logo. I'd watched my parents pour money into his ideas for a decade. A food truck, a landscaping company, an online resale business that lasted 3 months. Each time, they'd called it an investment. Each time, it had quietly disappeared. Now Diane was pregnant again. Their lease was ending, and somehow the solution was my condo. By 6 a.m, they'd stopped knocking. I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee gone cold, going through every document I had related to the purchase. The deed, the mortgage paperwork, the closing disclosure, every page with my name on it, and only my name. I photographed each one and emailed them to myself with the subject line, records. Then I called Priya. She picked up on the second ring, which meant she was already awake, which meant she was already on her way to an early shift. "Is this an emergency?" she said. Before I'd even spoken. "Kind of," I said. "Are you bleeding?" "No." "Then I'll call you on my break." She paused. "Actually, tell me fast." I told her fast. When I finished, there was a brief silence and then she said, "Elena, go look at your mortgage statement. Check if there's any second contact listed." I pulled it up on my phone while she waited. There it was, buried at the bottom of the page in small print. Secondary contact of record. Linda Reyes. My mother's name. "It's there," I said. "When did you add her?" "I didn't." Another silence. Then, call your loan servicer the second they open. Ask for a full account history and find out exactly what permissions that contact has. She paused again. "And Elena, document everything. Every call, every visit. Write down the time and what was said. Start now." I started now. At 8 o'clock, I called the loan servicer. I was on hold for 22 minutes before reaching a representative named Daniel, who spoke carefully and slowly in the way people do when they're trying not to alarm you but absolutely have information that should alarm you. "There was an inquiry submitted on this account in September," he said. "A request to add a co-borrower." "I didn't request that," I said. "The inquiry was submitted with your account information. It was not processed because the documentation required your in-person signature, and it was never completed." My hands were very still. "Who submitted it?" "The name listed was Linda Reyes. She identified herself as your mother and listed herself as a secondary contact." I asked him to notate the account, flag it for any future unauthorized access, and mail me a full account history. He said he would. I thanked him, hung up, and sat with the silence of my kitchen for a long moment. My mother had tried to add my brother to my mortgage. She'd gotten far enough into the process to submit paperwork with my account information, and the only reason it hadn't gone through was because the bank had required my actual signature. My physical presence, the one thing she couldn't fake. I thought about the year before I'd closed on the condo. The lease on my old apartment had ended, and my mother had offered to let me stay with her for a few months to save money before the closing date. I'd accepted, because it made financial sense, and because I thought I still believed then that accepting help from your family was a safe thing to do. For 2 months I'd lived in my childhood bedroom with boxes stacked in the corner, and my whole financial life sitting on the desk in plain sight. Loan approval letters, bank statements, pre-closing documents. My mother had access to all of it, and I'd never thought once about what she might do with that access. Because she was my mother, and I was still operating under the assumption that love meant safety. It didn't always mean that. I knew that now. The messages started arriving around noon. First, my mother long voicemails that began calm and ended somewhere near tears, telling me I was hurting the family, telling me Marcus needed stability, telling me that everything she did was for us, for the family, that I had no idea what it cost her to watch her son struggle. Then my brother shorter, harder. "You're really going to let your nephew grow up without a stable home because you won't share a 2-bedroom condo? Nice, Elena, real generous." Then 2 text messages from an aunt I hadn't spoken to in 6 months, which told me my mother had already started making calls. I didn't respond to any of them. I opened the Notes app on my phone and logged each one time. Sender. Summary. It felt clinical. It felt necessary. At 2 in the afternoon, I drove to the hospital and asked to speak with HR. Not because I expected them to solve anything, but because I knew the hospital had a legal assistance program for employees, one of those benefits buried in the handbook that nobody ever thinks they'll use. I explained the situation to the HR coordinator, a woman named Beverly who had the particular calm of someone who has heard many complicated things and remained unshocked by all of them. "I can connect you with the employee legal service," she said, already reaching for the phone. "They handle property disputes and family-related legal issues." She paused. "This happens more than you'd think." That sentence hit me the same way a similar sentence had hit the protagonist in a story I'd once read. The quiet devastation of finding out your specific pain had a category. The attorney they connected me with was named Christine Park. She had an office on the 9th floor of a building downtown and a way of reading documents that reminded me of how I read lab results quickly, quietly, looking for the thing that confirms what you already suspected. She went through everything I'd brought. The deed, the mortgage documents, the notated account record from the servicer, the photos of the original paperwork from my phone. She didn't say much until she'd finished. And then she set the papers down and looked at me. "Your mother doesn't have any legal claim to this property," she said. "Her name is not on the deed, she's not on the mortgage, and the co-borrower application she initiated was never completed. Legally, you're fully protected." But I started. "There is no but on the property question," she said. "However, the fact that she submitted that inquiry using your account information without your permission is something we should document formally, because if she tries it again, or tries a different route, a fraudulent deed claim, a lien, you want a paper trail that shows intent." I nodded. "What do I do right now?" "Freeze your credit with all 3 bureaus. Today. Lock the account with your servicer so that no changes can be made without your in-person verification. And send a certified letter which I'll draft for you informing your mother that any further attempts to access or modify documentation related to this property will be referred to law enforcement." I thought about my mother getting that letter. I thought about her face when she read the words law enforcement. "She'll say I'm being dramatic," I said. Christine looked at me evenly. "Dramatic people don't show up at someone's door at 5 in the morning with a co-borrower application they submitted without permission." She picked up her pen. "Let's get started." That evening, I drove home and sat in my kitchen again, but it felt different now. The stack of documents on the table looked like armor instead of evidence. I made dinner actually cooked, pasta from scratch, the kind that takes 40 minutes and requires you to pay attention, and ate it at my own table in my own kitchen in my own condo, and the food tasted better than anything I'd eaten in weeks. My phone lit up with a name I hadn't expected. One of the older nurses on my floor, a woman named Sandra, who had worked pediatrics for 23 years and who I associated almost entirely with competence and the occasional dark joke about hospital administration. I almost didn't pick up, but something made me answer. "Heard you had a rough morning," she said. I blinked. Word travels fast. "Priya worries out loud," Sandra said. "Don't be mad at her. Are you okay?" "I'm handling it," I said. "Good." She paused. "I'm going to tell you something my mother told me when I bought my first house and my brother decided it was also his. She said, 'The people who love you celebrate what you build. Everyone else shows up with a moving truck.'" A brief silence. "Keep your paperwork in a fireproof box. Not a drawer, a box." I laughed, which was the first time I'd laughed all day. "I'll get one this week." "Get it tomorrow," she said, and hung up. I went to the hardware store the next morning and bought a fireproof document box with a combination lock. I transferred everything into it: deed, mortgage, closing documents, the certified letter Christine had sent, and put it in the back of my closet. It was a small thing, a practical thing, the kind of thing that doesn't feel significant until it is. 3 days after the early morning visit, my mother appeared on social media. I hadn't been checking, but Priya sent me a screenshot. My mother had posted a photo of herself at what looked like a family gathering, captioned with something about how hard it was to watch your children forget where they came from, about sacrifice and ingratitude, about how a mother gives everything and sometimes gets nothing back. The comments were full of people who had no idea what she was referring to, but were happy to be outraged on her behalf. She'd been vague enough to avoid specifics but clear enough that anyone who knew us understood the implication. I read it once, then put my phone face down on the counter. I wasn't going to post a response. I wasn't going to explain myself to people who were reacting to a paragraph written by someone who'd tried to add an unauthorized co-borrower to my mortgage. Whatever story my mother was telling, it wasn't the one with documents attached, but I felt it. The old familiar weight of being the villain in someone else's narrative. The one who was cold, difficult, unforgiving. The nurse who bought her own condo and wouldn't give it to her brother, framed so neatly that even I could almost see it from that angle if I squinted. I called Christine. My mother's making this public. Not specifically, but enough. Let her, Christine said. She has no legal standing and no facts on her side. Social media posts don't affect property records. If she says anything specific and provably false, we can discuss defamation. For now, silence is your best asset. Silence, I said, feels like losing. It's not, she said. It's patience. Those are different things. The calls continued for 2 weeks. My mother, my brother, that aunt, one distant cousin I barely remembered from family reunions, each one a variation on the same theme. You're being selfish. You're hurting the family. Marcus just needs a little time. What kind of sister are you? I logged every single one. Time, caller, summary. The folder on my phone was growing. Then one afternoon at the hospital, between a 12-hour shift and the particular exhaustion of having held someone's hand through something very hard, I checked my email and found a message from Christine marked urgent. I called her before I'd taken off my badge. I submitted a formal inquiry to your loan servicer this morning, she said, and they've confirmed something. Before the co-borrower application was attempted, someone contacted the servicer claiming to be you, requesting information about adding a co-owner to the deed. They were told it would require in-person verification and documentation, and the conversation was logged. My back was against the cold wall of the hospital corridor. When? August. 2 months before you closed. I did the math. August was when I'd been staying at my mother's house. August was when my paperwork had been spread across that desk in my childhood bedroom. She called pretending to be me, I said. We can't confirm identity on a phone call, Christine said carefully. What we can confirm is that someone called using your account number asking about deed co-ownership, and that caller gave your name. We have the log. The hallway around me kept moving nurses, patients, carts, the whole machinery of a hospital floor continuing without pause, and I stood still in the middle of it, putting together a timeline I'd been trying not to see clearly. My mother hadn't just tried to use a utility account as leverage. She'd been planning this before I'd even closed. She'd called the bank while I was living under her roof, gathered information, and then submitted the co-borrower paperwork months later using details she'd collected from my own documents. It wasn't desperation. It wasn't a mother doing something reckless out of love for her son. It was premeditated, quiet, and patient in a way that was almost hard to believe. Almost. What do we do with that log? I asked. We attach it to everything else, Christine said. And we send a follow-up letter, this time with the word fraud in it. That night, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. The city outside was doing what cities do at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, lights on in other buildings, a siren somewhere far away, the low persistent hum of a million people living their lives. I wasn't angry. Anger felt too hot for what I was carrying. This was something colder. The recognition of a pattern I'd been too close to see. Every time I'd built something, there was a hand at the foundation pulling. Not violently. Never obviously. Quietly. The suggestion that I should stay home longer after college. The implication that my nursing program was a lot for someone who doesn't like stress. The casual reframing of my savings as the family's money at holiday tables. Each small thing, alone, was nothing. Together, they were a map of every moment my mother had decided that my life was a resource she had a right to manage. I opened a new document on my laptop and started writing. Not a complaint or a statement, just a record. Every memory, dated as accurately as I could. Every conversation I'd kept in my head without realizing I was keeping it. When I finished, it was almost midnight. I saved the file, labeled it history, and backed it up to the cloud. Then I closed the laptop and sat with the quiet. The certified letter arrived at my mother's house 4 days later. I know because she called me 7 times in 30 minutes, leaving voicemails that escalated in tone from hurt to angry to something that landed close to threatening. I saved everyone. My brother called once, which was somehow worse. His voice was flat. "You sent our mother a legal letter." I sent her a letter explaining that her attempts to access my mortgage account without my permission needed to stop, I said. "You're treating her like a criminal." "I'm treating this like what it is," I said. He was quiet for a moment. "You know what your problem is? You've always thought you were better than us. Every degree, every promotion, every big decision you make it so clear that you think we can't keep up." I leaned against my kitchen counter. "I think you make your choices," I said. "I make mine. I don't get to judge yours. But I also don't owe you mine. We're family." "I know," I said. "I know we are." And then, because I was tired and it was true, "That's the only reason this hurts." He hung up. I stood in my kitchen for a while after that, not moving. Then I put the phone down and finished making dinner. 2 weeks later, Christine called with news. The servicer has completed their internal review. The unauthorized contact inquiry has been flagged and closed. Your account has been permanently secured with in-person verification required for any changes, and they've issued a written statement confirming your sole ownership and the unauthorized nature of the prior contact. She paused. "It's done, Elena." I was sitting on my couch, legs pulled up, the city visible through my east-facing window. Done as in your mother has no legal path to this property. None. The bank's record now formally documents the unauthorized access. If she ever tries again a deed claim, a lien, anything, she'll be walking into a wall of documentation that starts with a phone call she made in August and ends with a fraud flag on her record. I exhaled slowly. What if she tells people I fabricated all of this? Then she tells people, Christine said. Property records are public. Your name is on the deed. The rest is just noise. After the call, I sat for a while without doing anything. The late afternoon light came through the window and made long rectangles on the hardwood floor. And I thought about the October morning I'd moved in. Borrowed truck in the parking lot, Priya making terrible jokes while we wrestled a mattress up 4 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken. I thought about the first night I'd slept here, in a sleeping bag on the floor because the bed frame was still in a box. Eating takeout and listening to the sound of the building settling around me and feeling something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time, like I'd built something real, like the ground beneath me was mine. I got up, went to my closet, pulled out the fireproof document box, opened it. The deed was right on top, my name printed clean on the first line. I held it for a moment, then put it back and locked the box. The social media posts from my mother's side of things continued for a while. A cousin sent me a message asking what really happened. I thanked her for asking and told her I was happy to share documents if she was interested in facts. She never responded. I wasn't surprised. 3 weeks after the legal confirmation, my mother called on a Sunday afternoon. I almost didn't answer. Then I did. Her voice was different, not soft exactly, but quieter. The performance quality gone from it. I got the letter from the bank, she said. I know. You really went that far? Yes, I said. I did. A long pause. I just wanted things to be fair, she said finally. Marcus is struggling. You have so much and he has so little. I thought. You thought you'd take the difference out of what I built, I said, not harshly, just clearly. She didn't answer that. I've been helping Marcus for a long time, Mom, I said. Every loan I gave him that never came back. Every time I covered something without being asked. I did it because I wanted to. Because he's my brother and I love him. But my home is not a resource to be redistributed. It's mine. I worked for it alone. You act like I'm the enemy, she said. I don't, I said. I act like someone who needed to protect herself. Another silence. Longer. Then, are you cutting us off? I thought about it honestly. The honest answer was complicated. I'm not cutting anyone off, I said. I'm changing what you have access to. You can call me. We can see each other. But you don't get a key to my finances or my property again. And I need you to understand that that's permanent. She made a sound that might have been crying, might have been anger with my mother. It was sometimes hard to tell. I just want my family back. I'm still here, I said. I'm just different than I was before. We talked for a few more minutes, neither of us saying much. When we hung up, I didn't feel the clean relief I'd imagined. I felt something heavier and more honest, the specific sadness of loving people who don't know how to love you back without taking something. You can grieve that and still hold your ground. Both things can be true at once. Priya came over that evening with wine and no questions, which was exactly right. We sat on my couch and watched something forgettable on television, and she refilled my glass twice and at some point said, "You know what I've been thinking about?" "What?" "That first Saturday you moved in. When we carried your couch up 4 flights and then sat on the floor eating pizza because you didn't have any furniture yet. The elevator was broken," I said. "Yeah." She smiled. "But you kept saying, 'Isn't it nice? Isn't it so nice?'" And I kept thinking, what is she talking about? This is chaos. But then I got it. You meant the quiet. Even with all the boxes and the broken elevator and the pizza on the floor, you meant the quiet. I looked around my living room. The boxes were long gone. There was a rug I'd picked out myself, a shelf of books I'd been collecting since college, the lamp with the slightly crooked shade I kept meaning to fix. Everything in this space had been chosen by me, bought by me, put here by my own decision. "Yeah," I said. "That's exactly what I meant." Later, after Priya had gone, I stood by my east-facing window in the dark. The city outside was doing what it always did, indifferent, illuminated, moving. I pressed my hand flat against the glass for a moment, feeling the cold of it. 4 years of night shifts, 4 years of holidays worked, vacations skipped, savings accumulated dollar by dollar in an account with my name on it alone. Every hour of it had been for this. Not for a family investment, not for a shared asset, not for leverage someone else could pull. For this. This floor, this window, this quiet. I'd spent the last 2 months proving what I already knew. My name was on the deed. The law said it was mine. Every bank document and official record agreed. But that wasn't really what I'd needed to prove. What I'd needed to prove, mostly to myself, was that I would protect it. That when the people who were supposed to love me showed up at 5 in the morning with the wrong idea about what belonged to them, I would be the one still standing when the paperwork was done. I dropped my hand from the glass and went to make tea. The condo was quiet. The city outside hummed and flickered. The document box sat locked in my closet, full of paper proof that this was mine, had always been mine, would remain mine, and somewhere between that thought and the sound of the kettle beginning to warm, I let myself feel it fully. Not as a victory, not as a defeat of something, just as a fact. A simple, clean, hard-won fact. My name on a deed, my feet on my floor, my window, my dark, my quiet. That was enough. That had always been enough. It just took a crowbar, or in my case, a pre-dawn visit and an unauthorized bank call to make me say it out loud.